Thank you very much. And thanks to all of you for being here today. You know, everywhere you look, you can see Americans all over this country are worried about the direction our country is headed. Americans are sick and they're tired of watching our time-honored American values like freedom, honesty, integrity, the rule of law being reduced, ridiculed, and replaced by politicians who deal in lies, who see integrity as weakness, and who frankly don't give a damn about your freedom or the rule of law. Seriously, I mean, you want an example? Look no further than the guy that right now occupies the White House. Earlier this month, in an event to honor two courageous New York City police officers who were murdered by a violent felon, Joe Biden shamelessly used the opportunity to push his gun ban agenda. He went up there and he called for a ban on semi-automatic rifles. He called for a ban on standard capacity magazine. He called for a ban on private gun sales. And he called for suing America's firearms manufacturers into the ground and out of business. The one thing you didn't hear him call for at all is the one thing that could have saved those officers and helped them return home to their families that day. You didn't hear Joe Biden once call for putting violent criminals behind bars where they all belong. He didn't once, not once, mention that the monster who killed those officers was a violent felon out on parole when he should have been in jail. Instead, what Joe Biden did is he sat there and shamelessly looked right into the camera and he pointed his finger at you and me. And he blamed us and our Second Amendment freedom. This is the same Joe Biden who serves as a national cheerleader for pro-criminal policies, and you know what I'm talking about, like no cash bail. It's the same Biden who wants to get rid of mandatory minimum sentences. And it's the same Joe Biden who refuses to get serious about prosecuting felons who violate federal gun laws, and instead, he just lets them go free. Make no mistake, Joe Biden's radical agenda to help violent criminals escape justice is only going to make deadly crime and the wave that is across our country right now spread farther and deeper into more communities all over our precious country. But no matter how hard Biden tries to blame us for the violent crime that he enables, I'm happy to report that Americans all over this country aren't buying into his agenda. You know what they're doing instead? They're out there in record number buying guns. Last year, 5.4 million Americans purchased a firearm for the first time in their lives. And you know why? Because all of them can see what's happening all around them in their country. And they want to be able to protect themselves, and they want to be able to protect their families. They pick up the paper, and they see the daily news stories of another violent robbery, another heinous murder in another part of their community that they always thought was safe. And they know that Joe Biden and his anti-gun allies care more about protecting criminals than protecting those law-abiding Americans. You know, I don't know if you saw this, but in a recent news story out of Los Angeles, California, a small gun shop owner in Beverly Hills, of all places, reported a huge increase in business from the folks you'd least expect. Movie stars, film executives, Hollywood bigwigs, more and more of them were sneaking into his shop and secretly buying guns. They're probably the same actors who buy a gun one day, and the next day they go out and rail against you and me and our Second Amendment rights. You know, when you think about it, maybe that's why so many celebrities are out there pushing so hard for mask mandates. They don't want anyone to recognize them when they sneak into the gun store. And if any of those Hollywood hypocrites are watching right now, as we sit here, I have a message for you. No matter how much you attack us, belittle us, or try to shame us for exercising our Second Amendment rights, the men and women of the National Rifle Association will fight for your right to keep and bear arms just as hard as we fight for ours. Because this freedom belongs to all of us as Americans.